Welcome to the Ninth Circle Society, where we delve deep into the shadows of history. Today, we embark on a chilling journey through some of humanity's darkest chapters. Prepare yourself for a stark reminder of the fragility of civilization as we explore the unsettling truths that history books often leave out. In other words, this is about to get really fucked. Let's begin our journey in 1478 with the Spanish Inquisition, a period of religious fanaticism that sought to root out heresy in Spain. Imagine a time when suspicion could lead to torture and execution, where fear was a weapon wielded by the state. Over the course of its history, tens of thousands faced brutal interrogation, and many were executed. The Inquisition didn't just target Jews and Muslims, it extended to anyone deemed a threat to the Catholic Church. An estimated 32,000 people were executed during this dark period. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Inquisition was how easily neighbors turned against each other. Accusations could stem from jealousy or greed, and lives could be destroyed with a simple whisper. Fast forward to the 1930s in Ukraine, Holodomor, a man-made famine, devastated the nation between 1932 and 1933, leading to the deaths of an estimated 3 to 7 million people. Imagine waking up each day to find your family starving, all while the government hoarded food supplies. Driven by Stalin's policies, the Soviet regime confiscated grain and other food resources. Farmers were left with nothing, while the elites lived in abundance. The world remained largely unaware of the horrors unfolding in Ukraine. Adding to the tragedy, the Soviet government denied aid, pushing the narrative that no famine existed. Families resorted to eating whatever they could find, leading to some of the most horrific acts of desperation we've ever seen as a species. In December of 1937, Nanking, China fell into the hands of Japanese troops, and what followed was a period of immense suffering that left deep scars in history. For 6 weeks, the city endured brutal violence, with estimated deaths ranging from 200,000 to 300,000 individuals. This dark chapter is often foreshadowed by World War II's larger narratives. Soldiers committed horrific acts against civilians, looting, arson, and violence became commonplace. Families were torn apart and cities became battlefields. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this event was the sheer disregard for human life. For those of you that are aware of how things went down with Unit 731, think of it like this, except instead of it being over several years, it was over several weeks. And there was no research to be done. It was just brutal carnage for the sake of carnage. On June 24th of 1973, a tragic event unfolded in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Upstairs Lounge, a popular gay bar in the city, and as a matter of fact, one of the few gay bars in the city at that time, became the target of an arson attack, killing 32 people. This shocking event is often overlooked in discussion of LGBTQ history. The fire was intentionally set, and the tragedy revealed the pervasive homophobia at the time. Survivors faced not only the trauma of loss, but also the stigma of being part of the LGBTQ community. The response from law enforcement was tragically inadequate, and the media coverage was lackluster. Many of the victims were not even properly mourned. The Upstairs Lounge fire remains as a painful reminder of the fight for acceptance and justice the LGBTQ community faces, back then and to this day. From 1975 to 1979, Cambodia was under the brutal regime of the Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot. Over 1.7 million people, approximately a quarter of the population, died due to starvation, forced labor, and executions. Under the guise of creating an agrarian utopia, the regime targeted intellectuals, professionals, and anybody perceived as a threat. Families were torn apart and entire communities were decimated. One chilling fact about this period is the establishment of the Tuol Sleng prison, where thousands were tortured and executed. The sheer brutality of the regime left a lasting legacy of trauma that the country still continues to grapple with. Oh boy. On September 11th, 2001, the world witnessed a shocking act of violence that would change the course of history as we know it. 4 coordinated terrorist attacks targeted the United States, killing nearly 3,000 people. While the attackers claimed their actions were rooted in ideological beliefs, the impact was felt worldwide. Families were shattered, communities were traumatized, and the nation was forever altered. So while going through the research for all of these different topics for the video, I actually, it was my first time coming across this particular story for 9/11. So on one of the elevators, when the planes hit, all of the elevators stopped, right? A lot of people were jammed inside. I mean, a lot of people were jammed inside of office because the building physically warped. So the doors were jammed shut. Well, this guy, he was just there, he was cleaning windows, that was his job, and he ends up using this window squeegee to pry open this elevator door and saved his life and everybody else that was in the elevator with him. It just goes to show it doesn't matter what your station is in life, you can make a world of difference to those around you. This is a pretty gloomy video. Just in subject matter, so I just wanted to share that story to kind of have a little bit of positivity where I could. On June 12, 2016, Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida became the site of a horrific mass shooting, claiming 49 lives and injuring many others. This tragic event struck at the heart of the LGBTQ community. The attack was fueled by hate and intolerance, leaving a scar on the community that still resonates today. Survivors and families of the victims have had to navigate the immense grief and trauma left in the wake of such violence. What's particularly haunting about this tragedy is how it's underscored in the ongoing fight for LGBTQ rights and acceptance in a world where hate still finds a foothold. Between 1994 and 1998, North Korea faced a catastrophic famine known as the Arduous March. Estimates suggest that between 240,000 and 3.5 million people lost their lives due to starvation and malnutrition during this period. The famine was triggered by a combination of natural disaster, economic mismanagement, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, which had been a significant source of support. As food shortages became rampant, the North Korean government struggled to cope, and their nation's citizens unfortunately faced the fallout of that. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Arduous March is the fact that the regime prioritized military spending over humanitarian needs, leading to dire consequences for the civilian population. Despite the suffering, the government maintained strict control over information and resources. What's particularly disturbing is that many of the stories of survival during this period remain untold, hidden behind the veil of secrecy surrounding North Korea. The Arduous March serves as a crystal clear reminder of the human cost of political decisions and the importance of empathy when addressing crises abroad. Let's travel back to the late 17th century in colonial America. The witch trials, particularly the infamous Salem witch trials of 1962, serve as a stark reminder for the dangers of mass hysteria and scapegoating. Fueled by fear and superstition, a group of young girls accused several local women of witchcraft. What began as a few whispers quickly spiraled into a full-blown frenzy, resulting in the executions of 20 individuals. And in my opinion, the most chilling misconception of the Salem witch trials is that, for some reason, people actually believed that it involved witchcraft, when in reality, it was just these spoiled, rotten little girls throwing accusations around because their parents wanted to buy these people's land. The easiest way to acquire someone's land is not forcing them to run away. Apparently in Massachusetts, it was accusing them of witchcraft so they could be tried and executed, and then you could buy their land for a fraction of the cost. In April of 1994, Rwanda descended into chaos as ethnic tensions erupted into violence. In just 100 days, an estimated 800,000 people lost their lives. The horror unfolded as neighbors turned against neighbors. Rooted in a history of colonialism and division, the conflict pitted the Hutu majority against the Tutsi minority. Propaganda and incitement to violence spread rapidly, leading to unspeakable acts. Like, you actually had the local news, like the local news in Rwanda, like the news radio and whatnot, telling people, go and attack this person, go and attack this person, this is this person's address. Like, they're actively inciting violence on a state level. And what was particularly haunting is that the international community largely failed to intervene. Despite having prior knowledge of the impending catastrophe, many still bear the scars of loss and trauma today. Between 1941 and 1945, Europe faced one of its darkest periods as millions fell victim to a horrific campaign of extermination. The Holocaust claimed the lives of approximately 6 million Jews, along with countless others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. The mechanisms of this atrocity were chillingly systematic. Concentration camps, forced labor, and mass executions became tools of a regime driven by hate and intolerance. One of the most unsettling facts is that many ordinary citizens were complicit, either through active participation or passive acceptance of the regime's policies. This tragic chapter serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and bigotry. On August 6th of 1945, the world witnessed an unprecedented act of destruction. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Japan, marked a turning point in warfare. An estimated 140,000 people lost their lives by the end of the year due to immediate effects and long-term radiation exposure. The decision to drop the bomb was justified as a means to end World War II quickly, but the horrific human cost remains a haunting legacy. Survivors faced lifelong physical and psychological scars. What's particularly eerie is the extent of the devastation. Entire neighborhoods vanished in an instant, leaving behind shadows of those who'd perished. The memory of Hiroshima continues to provoke vital discussion about the ethics of warfare. Just 3 days after Hiroshima, on August 9th of 1945, the city of Nagasaki faced a similar fate, becoming the second target of an atomic bomb. An estimated 70,000 people died immediately, with many more suffering from long-term effects of radiation. The bomb's impact was catastrophic, and like Hiroshima, the survivors dealt with the physical and psychological repercussions for decades. More chilling is the fact that many of the residents were unaware of the threat until it was too late. The haunting memories of these bombings continue to shape global conversation about nuclear weapons and warfare. From 1830 to 1850, the United States implemented a brutal policy of forced removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral lands, leading to what is now known as the Trail of Tears. thousands of Native Americans were uprooted, with an estimated 4,000 deaths occurring during this journey. This dark chapter was justified under the guise of manifest destiny, yet it resulted in profound loss of life and culture. The suffering endured during the forced marches is a testament to the resilience of those who survived. What's particularly haunting is the disregard for Native American rights and lives, which echoes in ongoing discussion about sovereignty and reparations to this day. From 1845 to 1852, Ireland was gripped by a catastrophic famine known as the Great Hunger. An estimated 1 million people perished, and another 1 million immigrated in search of a better life, leaving the population decimated. The primary cause of this tragedy was the potato blight, but the impact was exacerbated by the British government's inadequate response and exploitative policies. The suffering of the Irish people serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect and oppression. In 2004, Fallujah, Iraq became the center of intense military conflict during the Iraq War. Operation Phantom Fury led to significant civilian casualties, with an estimation of 4,000 to 6,000 non-combatant deaths during the battle. The aftermath left the city in ruins and its residents in despair. What happened in Fallujah perpetuates an ongoing debate about the ethics of warfare and the human cost of military intervention. The scars of this conflict are still felt by survivors today. Which brings us to our most modern entry on this tier of the iceberg. In August of 2021, the world watched in shock as the Taliban seized control of Kabul, leading to what many there referred to as hell on earth, as terrified Afghans attempted to flee the country. The situation reflected years of conflict and struggle for the Afghan people, and it all hit a fever pitch right there at that airport. Many feared for their lives as the Taliban reasserted its power, leading to a mass exodus of those seeking safety. The potential for a humanitarian crisis loomed large as the international community grappled with its implications. What's particularly unsettling is the uncertainty that looms over Afghanistan. The struggles of its people remind us that the consequences of conflict extend far beyond the battlefield. Considering many of these individuals were our allies during several wars in the region, for us to just turn our backs the way we did, it's unforgivable.
How desperate these people were to escape the Taliban. This lady, we had to send her back out of the gate, and I don't remember who did it, but some individuals were taking her back out of the gate and go back into the crowd, and she jumps, leaps at the razor wire and starts trying to cut her throat with the razor wire. She was like, if you send me back, they're gonna rape me, they're gonna torture me, kill me, and like a couple Marines grabbed her and prevented her from killing herself. But I mean, that's how bad it is there. Like, she was willing to just slit her throat on razor wire. Can you imagine that?
Find someone that you believe may not have heard of these stories. Educate them on them. The sooner we forget, the sooner history repeats. Thank you. Good night.